Welcome back, everybody. It is the Awesemo.com Nhl Dfs strategy show. As I put the wrong link into Slack, let me fix that really quick. I am Jake Hari. I'm joined by Michael Clifford, Slim Cliffy, to break down this 5-game, nice little Friday slate. Locks a little bit later. I'm sure you won't complain about the start time. You would never do anything like that. I would the other day, but
I would never complain about start times.
Yeah. So what was the? I mean, we got a little bit of time here. What was the essence, or what brought that on? I guess were people complaining about the 11 Eastern start?
Yeah, it was the Montreal Vancouver game starting at 11 Eastern, and I get that it's late. It is late, but where I live, all late games start at 11 or 11:30 p.m. And if you live in Newfoundland, they start at 11:30 or midnight. That game started at 12:30 in the morning in Newfoundland. It started the next day. So, these 11 p.m. Eastern starts, you can get used to them.
Yeah, you're a veteran with those. I heard you say you haven't gone to bed before midnight where you're at since you can remember.
Yeah, years. It's been years. I'd say 5+ years.
That's insane. Well, I mean, I'm pretty much the opposite. I don't know. I used to stay up for all these games, but then I would just get tilted and then not be able to sleep. You get the heart racing, and it's not like it's enough money that I'm playing right now to for me to care. I shouldn't care that much day to day, but I used to really care, and I was playing a lot less. And so I don't know, I usually just check out if I feel like I don't have anything going. And sometimes even if I do have something going, you never want to get to the end and then you go from having a really nice night and all of a sudden you make $50 or whatever at the end of the night. That's almost worse than just losing it all and knowing you're going to lose it all. So yeah, I don't know, man. I just try to go to bed early and forget about it most nights.
Yeah, it can be tough to sit there when you got a hot lineup going into the late slate and then your secondary stack just does absolutely nothing and you just see yourself falling and falling. I'm with you. If I have something hot going into the late slates, usually I'll throw on a movie and then I'll check a couple hours later.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the optimal way to go, just for mental health reasons. DFS can be tough on your mental health. I'm sure, as everybody knows, I know a bunch of people have been struggling. I've been struggling the last 2 weeks in NHL DFS. Mental health is doing well. So don't worry about me there. But I've been getting crushed the last 2 weeks. So if you check lineup study and if anybody looks at my lineups, you're going to not want to see what I've done the last 13 or 14 days. So we'll look to get on the right track for today. That's all we can do. We've got 5 games. What are you thinking about this slate? What's your initial thoughts here?
I mean, it's another one of those slates where there's a couple of really obvious spots. We just saw Edmonton lay the beat down on Ottawa, and we get that matchup again here tonight. Colorado's obviously always going to draw some ownership, but there are a lot of, I think, interesting little spots on this slate besides the obvious. There are probably going to be some backup goalies starting. We have some guys returning from injury. There's one in the Minnesota game that's probably going to be of interest. If you look a little bit right to the end of the slate, there are probably going to be some significant lineup changes coming from San Jose that really alters the outlook of that team. So while there are those two obvious, really high priced, really good lines to go to, I don't think it's necessary to just, have half your lineups with McDavid and half your lineups with McKinnon or something like that. I think there are enough other good spots on the slate that, you probably want to get some Edmonton or Colorado in your lineups, but you can definitely look elsewhere to try and find some goals.
Yeah, I think, look, there's 2 obvious spots, and I think after that, you're going to be pretty differentiated if you don't have one of those 2. So as a MME, I think it is a pretty good MME slate. Sometimes on these smaller ones, you just feel like you run out of options. But I think there's ways to get different with at least a portion of your lineups if you don't go to those 2 spots, those 2 very expensive spots that are going to force you into just a certain subsect of lineup construction afterwards. So as it always is with expensive chalk, first of all, if it goes off, it has to go off. And even when it does, you're still competing against 20-30% of the field with the same kind of cheap stack. So I'm going to be experimenting with some 3-2-1s and taking a little bit away from like max correlation from my Colorado 1 and Edmonton 1 lineups, I think tonight. I think it's a short enough slate where it warrants that because I'm finding myself running out of options to stack if I don't want to be duped like 10 or 20 times like some of these lineups might be tonight. So I'll be looking to avoid dupes, but good slate. Locks a little bit later, so I got some extra time to, I don't know, what do people do on Friday afternoons? Run to the grocery store, the liquor store, more like?
Yeah, I feel like a grocery/liquor store run is pretty common after work on Friday. Because I mean, depending where you live, you might be able to go out to happy hour now, but some places still aren't quite open yet. So, groceries and liquor store at home.
They just sent me the liquor store in my city sent out a $10 off if you spend $50. So I'm gonna go take advantage of that. Got a little extra time after the show with the slate locking an hour later. Just gonna be loading up on some black cherry claws, as real men do, as the audience knows. But yeah, let's get into the slate in just a second. First of all, I want to talk about our sponsor of the NHL DFS strategy show, JockMarket. They've turned fantasy sports into a stock exchange. JockMarket allows you to buy and sell shares of players in real time with real money and guaranteed payouts for all your shares at the end of the night. Daily markets for NBA, NHL, and PGA, and you can make real money every hour, every minute, and every second of any match. You're playing some soccer, although I don't know if they have soccer just yet. I haven't dabbled in that yet. But and then your normal games, your NBA, NHL, PGA, and then you can use the pregame IPO to pick up shares of your favorite players, buy more. You can sell, you can hold during the game, just based on your analysis. If you download the app, you can get started. And when you do get started, you're going to want to use a promo code for some free money, Awesemo NHL 50. That's a $50 deposit bonus on your first deposit. That's right, Awesemo NHL 50. That is an exclusive offer for the Awesemo community. So only people that are watching our shows, the NBA shows, the PGA shows, are going to be able to take advantage of this. And I mean, nowhere else is doing a $50 deposit bonus these days. Like, you might have seen this a few years ago, but in DFS, you're really not going to see this. So go support JockMarket. They're giving you free $50, up to a free $50 on your first deposit. All right, Clippy. There we go. Man, always so late with that one, Tyler. I guess you're trying not to mess up the read. So, you know, that's smart, actually. I get a little distracted when I hear those bells ringing. Vegas. St. Louis, the first of two 8 p.m. Eastern starts, 2.9 implied total for the Knights, 2.7 for the Blues. Possibly Dansk, possibly Logan Thompson making his first NHL start, and then Binnington going for the Blues. I'm not seeing changes on either side. I believe we're still without Pietrangelo for a while for the Knights. Mark Stone expected to be back in once again. He was a late addition to the lineup 2 nights ago against Minnesota. You're liking one team here potentially and not one team at all. We were talking a little bit before the show. So tell the people what you like here.
Yeah, I'll start with St. Louis, and I'll just say I don't have a lot of St. Louis here tonight. And I know that's probably a scary prospect, seeing as they – like, I assume it's going to be Logan Thompson starting after what Oscar Dansk did in their last game to pretty much cost them 2 points. So – I think it's going to be Logan Thompson tonight. You know, Thompson has decent numbers if you look at his career. 946 small sample in the AHL this year, 929 in 32 games in the East Coast last year, 918 in 8 games in the East Coast the year before that. Like, obviously, those are lower leagues, but you'd rather see a guy doing well in those lower leagues than getting absolutely shelled and then called up. So whether he's actually good or not, we don't know, but at least there's a track record of success here to kind of lean on. So that's the one thing that's kind of keeping me from St. Louis tonight is, like, I checked our ownership earlier. It has just been updated, I think, before we went on the air, and their ownership has really started to shoot up. I think Tarasenko started around 10%. He's up between 13 and 14 now. I think he gets closer to, honestly, between 15 and 20 because people are going to look at that AHL goalie and they're going to look at STL1 being relatively cheap. Like, what's their combined price here tonight? 15.6. Like, you can actually fit that in with some sort of Colorado stack. So I'm pretty much out on that St. Louis top line, especially where they're going into that matchup against Mark Stone and Max Pacioretty. Like, if you want to go down to the second line, I guess I can understand that, but Mike Hoffman being there just kind of takes away a little bit. Like, he's obviously a good goal scorer. I don't want to say like he's a bad goal scorer or anything like that, but their numbers they've been fine, but not great. Again, a bad matchup against VGK2. Like, the reason to play St. Louis here tonight is you're banking on a bad goalie start, right? Like, do you want to play 20%? Because you're going to have to play at least 20% St. Louis 1 to get over the field. Do you want to play 20, 25% St. Louis 1, maybe 30% or more if you really want to get over the field in what is a terrible matchup with a goalie that might actually be good? And like, I'm very well aware this could come back and bite me because it is an AHL goalie. Maybe he's just nervous and they absolutely blow the doors off for 4 goals on 6 shots or something like that. It could happen. I mean, McElhaney, who's like a long-time NHL backup, was lit up for 4 and 8 last night, right? Like, those things just happen. But we've seen Troy Grosnick do well. We saw Scott Wedgwood do well. Like, it's one game. If I can fade, like if a third of people tonight are going to have STL1 or STL2 in their lineups, which I think is reasonable. Like, I think you might see something like 18 and like 14% or something like that. Like, I think it'd be reasonable, like around 30% of people are going to have one of those 2 lines in their lineups. And all you need is one good goalie start to lap a third of the field. And you're sitting there with probably Edmonton or Colorado stacks left. That's kind of my thinking for fading STL here tonight. Like, I play 20 lineups. So even in 20 lineups on 5 games, like, I probably kind of have to cut teams. I could cut into my McDavid ownership for more STL, but then I'm probably coming in on the field on STL1 and way under on Connor McDavid. And that feels like just throwing away money. So that's my reasoning for being out on St. Louis here tonight. I am not going to fault anybody for going in on St. Louis because it is an AHL goalie. And if he does suck, his night could be over real quick. And St. Louis could bury the slate real quick. So I'm not going to begrudge anybody for going in that direction. It's just not something I'm going to do tonight to try to get away from what I think will be a couple of chalkier lines than we're currently projecting. I'm in on the Vegas side, actually. One thing I mentioned in chat earlier, of all the teams on the slate tonight, and remember, we have teams like Arizona and Anaheim and San Jose. The team with the worst penalty kill by expected goals against over the last 3 weeks, which would be about the last 10 games, is St. Louis. I think that Colton Parayko loss is a much bigger loss than people really want to admit. He played heavy minutes for them at even strength. He was a rock for them on the penalty kill as well. And the team just honestly hasn't looked the same. And they're middle of the pack by expected goal share over those same last 10 games we just talked about. And they have 2 games against San Jose, 4 against Los Angeles, and 2 against Anaheim in there. Like, this team has sucked for a while. So, you know what? Even if Tarasenko's back, I think it might take him some time to really get up to speed. I'm not going to play 15 to 20% Tarasenko on a 5-game slate when he has to get up to speed. So that's my reasoning for being out on St. Louis. I'm in heavy on Vegas 1 here tonight. I get it's kind of the same kind of reverse matchup. Like, they have to go into O'Reilly, but I just talked about how good of a power play matchup it probably is for that Vegas top line. And like I said, Tarasenko probably still has to get back up to speed. And it's not like Jordan Kyrou is a great 2-way winger. So, you're probably asking Ryan O'Reilly to do all the defensive work on that line. And I think that's too much to ask when you're going up against such a great top line. So I'm in on Vegas 1. Vegas top power play, mixing in, Theodore and Glass and those types of guys. If you want to use Vegas 2 as a filler, I have no problem with that. I just think they might end up somewhat chalky with like those Colorado and Edmonton lineups. So that's why I'm kind of avoiding them, and I want to get the low-owned Vegas 1 here tonight.
I greatly prefer the Vegas side as well. So you kind of laid it all out. I mean, I think the top 6 is a mismatch for St. Louis here. O'Reilly against one of the best lines in hockey. Don't really want to go into that. And I agree with you. I think the top line for St. Louis especially is going to pick up a fair amount of ownership. I think people will go to O'Reilly, Tarasenko if they're not even including Kyrou for 4,500. Like, Tarasenko just grades out as a pretty good value for his price still. He hasn't looked great so far, but I mean, give him some time. And people are still using numbers from the last couple of years, he's going to be a good value in a lot of projection systems for 4,700. So he's going to come up for people using optimizers. The matchup, though, it stinks. Vegas 2, I think, is an awesome play here. They're getting a little bit of steam as a filler right now. If you look at the top stacks tool, which is unlocked today, I kind of don't like that they're this cheap. 13-1 for Vegas 2. This is a really good line. They haven't finished well this season. They haven't had some of those big blow-up games we've seen over the last couple of seasons. But I think if they continue to carry play like this at 5-on-5, they're going to have some at some point. And then you mentioned Parayko. Since he's been out, the Blues have been kind of a mess defensively. Hurts their penalty kill as well. So, yeah, give me some Vegas here. Never have to talk me into Vegas. I'm always looking to play them. Just two really, really good lines. I like how they're correlated on the power play as well. Full PP1 for top line, full PP2 for the second line. They'll split a little bit. They'll get the Carlson, Marchessault, Smith trio on the power play with Martinez. So you got a clear defenseman to stack with either of the lines. You could probably flip-flop the defenseman as well, since they both play at 5-on-5, to get some differentiation with the lines if you don't just want to go with only Martinez with Vegas 2. You could throw in some Theodore, $800 difference, but I'll have a bunch of both Theodore and Alec Martinez. And then on the Blues side, just real quick, going back to their forwards, I think I would rather play the second line if I was choosing just one, just because they're a little bit weaker defensively. So Shen, Hoffman, Perron priced up a little bit. I just can't see how more people don't go to St. Louis 1 here. I think their ownership's going to come up in our projections once we run a couple more updates, but we'll see. I mean, I could be wrong about that. The only defenseman on the Blues I think I'll have a decent amount of is Vince Dunn for 3,300. Anything else you want to add here?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention Dunn. Braden McNabb might be a guy to punt. He's under 3K. His ice time might be a little bit of a concern, but he's typically a really big blocks guy. So if he can get close to 19, 20 minutes, he might get our block bonus for us.
All right. Yeah, keep an eye out for the starting goalie for the Knights. It sounds like you think it's going to be Thompson. We've got Dansk projected right now, but just swap in Thompson. That's what I would do if you don't want to remake all your lineups. You're playing a bunch of them. Let's go to the Yotes and the Wild. We've got a 2.4 implied total for Arizona, 3 for Minnesota. Could be Ranta for the Coyotes. We don't have confirmation on that. And then this one is a little bit surprising. I would think Minnesota probably plays tomorrow, even though I haven't checked the schedule. Kakkonen not starting. It's going to be Cam Talbot for the Wild. Kakkonen's been playing pretty well up until that last few minutes of the third period, but his team kind of let him down against Vegas. Anyways, we got some shifting going around on the Wild. Hartman is going to be back in the lineup centering Parise and Fiala. That used to be Victor Rask for the last few games. Rask going back with Kaprizov and Zuccarello. The GOAT line, Eriksson, Greenway, Foligno, stays intact. Foligno missed morning skate, but he's going to play. And they're going to take opposing top competition, which I would guess is the Schmaltz-Garland line. I don't know. I mean, do you have an opinion on line matching here? And then,
I think you're going to see Eriksson up against the Schmaltz line a fair amount all game, and that pretty much takes Schmaltz and Garland out of the running for me. Getting down to that Arizona second line, I think, is where things kind of get interesting. Pitlick and Keller Pitlick and Dvorak and Keller have actually been relatively good this year. 2.4 expected goals for, 57.2 expected goal share in 68 minutes played. Like, that's pretty good. It's not a surprise with Dvorak. I think he's kind of an underrated player. He's just not a huge offensive threat. But Tyler Pitlick and Clayton Keller seem to be playing well together. They're on the second power play unit together as well. So, like, if you want to dump down and put on, like, Jordan Osterley was on the second power play unit with them the last game. So, like, you can 3-man stack Keller, Pitlick, and Osterley for what, like 10,000 and change or something like that. So, like, I think that Arizona 2 makes a real nice filler stack if you want to get into your Colorado power play and your Edmonton power play and those types of things. So that's kind of where I'm looking on the Arizona side. That's probably going to be it for me on the Arizona side. That top line really hasn't looked good since they put Lawson Krause there, and I still don't understand why.
Shocker.
Yeah, right? Like the guy that was overdrafted and the guy that hasn't done anything his entire pro career is dragging down a line, Kel Surprise. The third line really doesn't do anything for me. Brassard, Larson, and Kessel. In fact, like, that's one of those lines that I want to go into. And like right now, the line matching I'm looking at from our buddy Adam Daly. And if you want to get those line matching, just hit me up on Twitter. You can subscribe through him. Has the Rask, Zuccarello, Kaprizov trio going up against Kessel, Brassard, and Larson. So it's kind of like what you want to do with this game. I think kind of depends what you want to do with the rest of your lineup, because Rask, Zuccarello, and Kaprizov come in at 14K, I believe. But the second line comes in at like 11,000. So the second line of Hartman, Parise, and Fiala, I think you're going to see as a popular filler stack in your Colorados and your Edmontons and in things like that. So I'm kind of actually liking that Kaprizov, Rask, Zuccarello line a little bit more. You get into that great Arizona 3 matchup. You probably get away from that cheap filler ownership. And like you can just straight two-man Kaprizov, Zuccarello if you want to get the power play correlation, though Minnesota's power play hasn't really been a whole lot to write home about. So I wouldn't worry too much about power play correlation here. So that's kind of where I'm sitting right now. Rask, Zuccarello, Kaprizov from the Minnesota side. If you want to put in like Parise, Hartman, Fiala, or Parise, Fiala, or Parise, Hartman, or something like that as a cheap two-man, to get to those Edmonton and Colorados, I have no problem, but you're going to have to, really make sure you make a conscious effort to be different, because I think those guys are going to be targeted in those more expensive stacks. So that's where I am on the Wild. I'm up on Rask, Zuccarello, Kaprizov, on Arizona, in more on Pitlick, Dvorak, and Keller, using Osterley for some added power play correlation.
I think you can play all three Minnesota lines. I think you can make a pretty good case for all of them here. We don't know really who's going to see more time against Arizona 2 and 3. That's a huge difference between those two, but it's going to be some mix of the Rask line and the Hartman line. So I think I prefer. It's going to be a great listen on podcast, because this does not get cut up. Okay, cool. I told him in chat. Quick note while we're talking about this game, while people are refreshing, this Grandma Jenkins in chat is just getting roasted. Hockey is a boring sport. I'm going to take my nap. This is not an NBA show. We've got plenty of NBA content coming up after this. 3 hours, in fact. Those guys will lead you up to lock. Those guys and girls, I should say, and women, they will lead you up till lock. They do a great job breaking it down for you, DFS betting, whatever it is. So you will get your NBA talk, and a lot of it, on this exact same channel in about 36 minutes. So if you can hold off till then, Grandma Jenkins, you will get your precious NBA talk. Trust me. Going back to the Minnesota side, I think I prefer the Parise Fiala line a little bit. I like them a lot as a two-man. Do what you want with Hartman. If you want to include them, feel free. If you don't, got no problem. Find a different center. That's I'm getting to some like hurdle one-offs with Parise and Fiala as like my three-man stack. And we'll talk about Hurdle. He's back for the Sharks. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But this is a Minnesota spot for me. I think I agree with you on the Dvorak line too. That's probably the one I would full stack. Or maybe just some Dvorak one-offs at 4,400. He's going to stay off the Eriksson Ek line, which that's a line like, I don't like to cross teams off or cross lines off, especially in a 5-game slate, but I would consider crossing off a line that I knew was going to face the Eriksson Ek line, Eriksson Ek Greenway, and Foligno line. They've been so good defensively, and going back to last season too. They're getting the minutes now. Like, it's a hard match every single time when they're at home. So Schmaltz Garland, really tough for me to play any substantial amount of. It's not like they're getting a lot of ownership. So maybe we just get the matching wrong and they go up against Dvorak. But that would be the only reason, I think, to play Schmaltz and Garland this evening. It's a Minnesota night for me. Parise, his rates aren't that bad. Like, he's generating some high danger chances. He's generating some scoring chances. He's not shooting a ton, but when he does, it's in close a lot. So he's getting some quality chances with Fiala there. I still think he's got something left in the tank, at least for DFS at 3K, getting secondary power play time with the Dumba Brodeen unit, I think is perfectly fine. Anything else left on this one?
I was just looking up Minnesota Three's defensive numbers.
They're so good.
Going back to last year, expected goals against per 60 of 0.97. Like, double that rate would be about league average.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And they look that good too. Like, when you watch them, like, there's just nothing. I mean, the Stone, Pacioretty, Stevenson line did okay against them, but I think the expected goals against when the Eriksson Ek line was on the ice was like 0.2 or something for the game, which is like, that's still not very good, especially grading on the Vegas 1 scale. So they're just amazing. Really not worried about any Arizona line doing anything against them. So as long as you get the matching right there, I think you could potentially cross off the Arizona lines. Any other defensemen on the Wild? There's always a handful of them that get power play minutes.
Yeah, the thing with the power play usage last game was weird because they had 2 defensemen on 1 power play unit. They had Suter and Spurgeon with Zuccarello and Kaprizov. Then the next power play, they had Dumba and Brodeen. They just straight up swapped the defensemen. So, like, I don't even know which defensemen are going to be on the power play for Minnesota. I mean, it's going to be 1 of the 4 or 2 of the 4. It's just a matter of which of them it's going to be. So I find myself like one-offing Minnesota defensemen, but my Minnesota stacks don't have a lot of defensemen because I don't want to guess this.
Yeah, well, I was reading chat there, so you might have just said it, but I noticed, like, in the games, they'll just flip-flop defensemen in game. So I don't know if you just said that exact same thing.
So it makes it tough to stack with your even strength or power play lines.
Yeah, it's difficult. So I usually get to a little bit more Dumba and Spurgeon, guys that shoot a little bit. They have some goal scoring in them. Dumba hasn't done much of anything. 4,800. I don't think a lot of people will be on him. We're showing about 6% ownership on him right now. So don't mind that on a 5-gamer. Let's go to the Kings and the Avs. 2.3 implied total for the Kings, 3.3 for the Avs. Grosenick, Cal Peterson, don't have confirmation just yet. I saw Peterson was expected to be taken off the COVID list, so potentially could start tonight. Probably Grubauer for the Avs. Is it Colorado one night? And if not, I guess that probably means Edmonton one night by default. We just saw them go bonkers 2 nights ago. We haven't seen a huge Colorado one game. I don't know. Is this the spot against Cal Peterson or Grosenick?
I have Colorado. I do have some Colorado here tonight. I want to talk about Los Angeles first because I think people might be targeting them, especially Los Angeles too, as a filler stack here tonight. Colorado, as even without Makar and Byram and those guys, has been the best defensive team in the league over the last month at all strengths. 1.87 expected goals against per 60. No other team is below 2. The problem has been the Colorado goaltending, which has come in at 877, which is the 5th worst in the league in that span. Like, Colorado, even without Makar, even without Byram or Johnson or Timmins, they're still just blowing the doors off the teams. The only thing that's holding them back is Grubauer or Miska or whoever has been in net for them. So, like, even with those injuries, like this, we talked about the St. Louis injuries and how much Parayko impacted St. Louis. Like, Makar's had almost no effect on being out of the lineup for Colorado. That's how good this team is. So the one thing that's holding me back from getting a ton of Colorado is Los Angeles doesn't really take many penalties. That's the one thing that really worries me here. Colorado generates a lot of power plays. They have the most power play opportunities per game, but Los Angeles is right around, the bottom third of the league by time shorthanded. Now, you won't need a ton if you get Colorado on those power plays. They have enough skill to do it. But that's just kind of what's tamping it down. So I do have some Colorado tonight, but I'm not going bonkers on them. Like, I'll probably have somewhere around 20 to 25%, and most of them will be some sort of mix, a power play stack or something like that. Like I said, on the Los Angeles side, really not a whole lot. And like Los Angeles has been playing well lately. Like this isn't like they had a real rough stretch in the first 2 or 3 weeks. But again, like if you want to just look at the last 3 weeks, which would cover, roughly like the last 10 games, give or take or something like that. Los Angeles is between Philly and Tampa Bay by expected goal share. And their expected goals against is right in line with teams like the Islanders. Like the Los Angeles Kings have been good lately. And it's not like it's been a PDO bender run. Their PDO is literally, or not literally, slightly above average. Like this just is who they are. So like, like I said, I'm using Colorado tonight, but I think if given the choice between loading up on Edmonton tonight or loading up on Colorado, I'd rather pick Edmonton, obviously, because I think Ottawa is just kind of a doormat, and Los Angeles honestly looks like a playoff team.
Yeah, there's no doubt the Kings have been impressive recently, and the Velarde, Athanasiou, Carter trio hasn't been as bad defensively as what I thought. Not saying you can't target against them. Like Colorado's obviously a better team here, but I think like there's going to be some resistance with this Kings team, and I don't know that you could say the same for the Sens. So it's probably not fair to compare any lines to Edmonton 1 based on what they just did. But I think I have Colorado 1 slightly below them. So right now I'm coming in about right where the field's at on McKinnon. I think I'm going to have a bunch of McKinnon one-offs, a bunch of McKinnon Rantanen, a bunch of McKinnon Landeskog. Like I said, I'm going to do some 3-2-1s tonight. It's a short enough slate. There's expensive guys that I want, and I don't just want to do 3-3s with them. So really like Colorado. They're not quite at the Edmonton 1 tier for me tonight. I will say, though, I did end up – I hand-built a lineup. I took a while to build like an actual hand-built lineup like I used to do a couple seasons ago. I did end up on a full Colorado 1. So they're a little bit cheaper, $700 cheaper than McDavid, Draisaitl, Yamamoto. So you could do a little bit more. They're awesome here. I don't have any problems with them. They're just not quite at Edmonton 1 level, I think, for my exposures tonight. Kadri, Saad, Burakovsky, they're just chalky. Like 13% for Kadri, 10% for Saad, $4,200 Burakovsky is almost 11%. I just feel like they're going to be a really popular filler, and probably with Edmonton 1. And so I'm not getting to a ton of them. I think if I'm going to an LA line, it's probably the third line. Lizotte with Kempe and Trevor Moore. That's a real cheap trio. Kempe's been playing really well, top power play there. You could two-man them as well. And you could go to Colorado 1 or go to Edmonton 1 with them. It looks like they're showing below 1% ownership. And the nice part about them, you mentioned how good Colorado is defensively, is that they probably only need a goal and a little bit more for them to be in a winning lineup at those prices. Or, one of those guys gets the shot bonus. I know that's not overly likely, but you don't need them to score 2 and 3 goals for them to be worth it at these prices. McDonald, I keep wanting to play this guy, 3K. He projects as one of the better values, just playing a bunch of minutes. Shot rates are okay. Probably going to play some at 5-on-5 with the McKinnon line as well. And Graves at 4,400, I like as well, if you're not going to Girard. But Girard, he's almost strictly a correlation play for me. I don't know. You probably feel the same way at 5,200 there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Girard would be my Colorado lineups. I do like Devin Taves as a one-off because, like, on the off chance this is kind of a low-scoring game, it's the same thing as McAvoy from last night, right? In the chance that it's a relatively low-scoring game, he could get in on a bunch of the goals because he just plays so many minutes. And McAvoy almost got there for us, 4 shots and 2 blocks. Like, he was just a shot and a block away from a huge night. So, yeah, I kind of like Taves as a one-off here tonight. Just to get to back to the forwards for 1 second, one line I wanted to talk about was Colorado 3, actually. Jost, Nichushkin, and Donskoy is probably the depth line that I'm going to go here out of this game. Nichushkin and Jost have a reasonable sample going back to last year skating together. 2.5 expected goals for, 2.5 actual goals for, 66% expected goal share. Like, Nichushkin was a legitimate Selke Trophy contender, and Tyson Jost has really rounded into a nice defensive player as well. Now, obviously, you don't get points for being good defensively on DraftKings, but if they can drive the play towards the offensive zone against the third and fourth line from the Kings, or, keep the play out of their own zone, I like their chances here. And they're super, super cheap. And they're coming in, at considerably less ownership than guys like Saad and Burakovsky. So I like that Colorado 3 lineup as a little 2-man here tonight. On the blue line, like I said, correlating Gerard with my PP1. Taves is a good one-off. Taves, you can even throw in with your Jost and your Donskoy if you have a little bit of salary left over. Not so much anything on the Los Angeles side. Like, I'm pretty much just out on them. I think, like, I might have some one-off like Matt Roy or Sean Walker or something like that, but that's about it.
Yeah. I mean, for the exact same reasons I said I liked LA 3, you could definitely go to Colorado 3 as well. They get some secondary power play time, and they're dirt cheap. So, like I said, a goal and maybe a little bit more. And I almost we just talked about the Kings being decent, but like the Josh stack with Colorado 1 and Colorado 3, like that's pretty affordable. If you stack those two together, that's going to be a combo not a lot of people have. I think some people will have Edmonton 1 with Colorado 3, but if you wanted to go with the full stack, you hope for the 6-7 goal outburst. Colorado hasn't had one in a while, but they're still very capable of it. They're a pretty deep team. And you would expect them to put this one away against the Kings more often than not, especially if it's not Cal Peterson in net. I think we're good for that game, right?
Yeah, that's it for me.
All right. Just want to mention before we get to the last couple games, we're celebrating the NBA's second half and the NHL's second half, and we got a special deal for the first time users of Awesemo Plus. If you have not signed up till now, this is the perfect time to do it. Promo code Shamrock will get you 50% off the Awesemo Plus Platinum weekly pass. So $15 for the first week. You'll get full access to all the DFS sports that we cover on the site. So NHL, NBA, PGA, NASCAR, MMA, soccer, esports, and last but not least, college basketball projections. March Madness starts next week, 6 days from now, I believe. And so we'll have projections going for that. Matt Kajeski will be making those. And you can pretty much play every sport for $15 for the first week. If you don't like it, you don't have to continue with us. But I think you'll like it. Make sure you get in Slack when you do. That's promo code Shamrock, and this expires the 17th of March. So you got only a few more days to take advantage of this. Senators and the Oilers, 2.6 implied total for the Sens, 3.9 for the Oilers. Matt Murray going up against probably Mike Smith. Could be Koskinen. I haven't seen a confirmed goalie here either. But, just take this one away. I mean, we know the deal with these two.
I mean, we could almost just run back everything we said from a couple nights ago, right?
Yeah.
The thing I wanted to be on Ottawa again here tonight because obviously we got burned on them the last game. Edmonton just absolutely shelled them. I think it was 7-1 was the final. Ottawa's top line got thoroughly run over by Edmonton's top line in the last game. I think Brady Tkachuk's expected goal share was around 25% or something like that. Like, it wasn't a good game for that top line. And what it gets even worse tonight because Colin White is hurt. So they've moved around their centers, and now it looks like Chris Tierney is back on the top line for Ottawa. And I like Josh Norris as a center. I really wanted Josh Norris to stay on that top line with Tkachuk and Connor Brown, but we obviously aren't going to get our wish here tonight. But I'm still going to go back to the top line because on a short slate like this, Brady Tkachuk is one of those players, like I mentioned in the last slate, he can single-handedly break a slate. He can put up 2 goals and 7 shots and and with an assist and just completely break a slate. He doesn't need great players around him to do that. But when he does that, I want to bring other guys along with him. So I'm going to have a little bit of that top line, but I'm probably going to leave just Tierney off of it. For one, I'm not convinced he's going to stay there all game. For 2, you don't get any power play correlation, and you want some here in this matchup going into Edmonton against the Edmonton penalty kill. So I'm going back in on the top line, but I'm probably going to leave Tierney off of it. And that's actually probably going to push me towards more power play stack-ish type lines. So something like Kachuk, Stützle, and Batherson, where I can get 3 guys all on the power play together, 2 of them skating at even strength together, or just like Kachuk, Dodonov, and Shabbat, something along those lines. I'm not going to just 3-man stack the Ottawa top line. It's going to be some sort of broken stack. 1, I don't think these lines stay together, and 2, I really want to get the power play correlation out of this game. But all that being said, I think the main event of the entire slate is Edmonton at home to Ottawa. We saw Leon Draisaitl go absolutely ham in the last game. We saw the top line get absolutely run over the last game. I don't expect Chris Tierney is going to help much here. With that Chris Tierney on the top line this year, Ottawa has a 45.3 expected goal share. With him off, it goes up to 54.8%. He is just sinking that line. So that's why I'm kind of keeping him off there, because he's not very good, and I don't think he lasts the whole game. So I think Edmonton is just going to run them over again. Like we saw in the last game, you can probably get really weird with your stacks. McDavid, Draisaitl, Chiasson, McDavid, Nugent, Hopkins, Chiasson, McDavid, Draisaitl, Yamamoto, Chiasson. And you're going to have to do it because Edmonton's, I'm assuming they're just going to be far and away the chalkiest team and line of the night. So you're going to have to get really different. If you just put McDavid, Draisaitl, Barrie, and then go find Vegas 2 or something like that, you're going to have 100 of your closest friends up there with you on the leaderboard. So in on Edmonton, but I'm going to get really, really different with my stacks. I'm probably going to have a season high of Alex Chiasson here tonight. But I am also in on the Ottawa power play, Kachuk, Dodonov, Batherson, Stützle, either Kachuk and Dodonov or Kachuk with those 2 guys, Batherson and Stützle, something like that. Just making sure I get Kachuk into my lineups.
All right. Quick going back, we got a super chat. Robbie, our boy, says, LA1 mini stack, what do you think? He says, Kopitar, I follow, and Doughty. Is that a 3-man you like? We didn't really touch on the top line, but since it's a super chat, we got to hit on it.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much out. Like I said, I'm out on Los Angeles here tonight. I think it's just an absolutely brutal matchup. There have been times in the last few years where the Colorado top line has looked like they can be had defensively. It just isn't this season. 1.7 expected goals against per 60. Going back to last year, it's just crazy. I'm just they won't have much ownership, but I also think they're a little bit too expensive for that matchup as well. So if you're playing 150 or something like that, I'd say, yeah, go ahead, get your LA in. But if you're playing 1 to 3, I'd say probably not.
Yeah, even with 150, first of all, absolutely not a priority for me. I think you can find 2-mans or 3-mans. I think I'd rather go to Ottawa. Some of the stacks you mentioned, I'd rather go to Kachuk, Brown, Shabbat. I know that's not perfectly correlated, but something along those lines, I would much rather do. Yeah, the Kings are just not a team that I'm on. Colorado's really tough. But thank you for the super chat, Robbie. Hopefully that helped you out one way or the other. Now back to the fighting Alex Chiassons. Wouldn't be a show if we didn't tout Alex Chiasson. 2,600 fourth line duster, but he plays top power play, so you got to at least consider him. I'll probably have him in a handful in my 150 builds at least. I mean, I don't know, I make fun of him, but he's power play 1. He could easily end up with 2 or 3 assists on the power play. If you're playing close to McDavid and Draisaitl, you got a chance. So, yeah, I'm joking about Chiasson.
I mean, let's get this straight. He's a bad fourth liner that's probably going to play 12 minutes, but he has 5 goals in 20 games this year playing on the top PP unit. He's on pace for 20 goals in a regular 82-game season. This guy just has to stand in front of the net and keep his stick on the ice, and he could get to 20 goals. All
right. Chiasson season. With Ottawa, the issue is just, are their lines going to stay together? And you mentioned they're just probably not, especially if they get down early. They're looking for anything to stop this Edmonton team, and they just can't. So I don't think anything they're going to do tonight is going to stop them. maybe McDavid and Draisaitl just have an off game. That's what you're rooting for if you don't play them, or you're rooting for Colorado 1 to go absolutely insane, which certainly could happen, and they could just outscore Edmonton 1. So there's a couple paths to victory if you fade them. I really like Nugent Hopkins or like a Nuge Puljujarvi two-man stack with one of McDavid and Draisaitl, and you just kind of hope that one of those guys gets left off of the majority of the scoring. There's ways to get creative. You mentioned Chase on playing Nurse instead of Tyson Barrie. I like Nurse straight up. He's not going to play top power play, but 6,500, he was significantly lower owned than Tyson Barrie. And Barrie had a stat correction that actually surpassed Darnell Nurse. Otherwise, it would have really worked out. So I remember I had a lineup up near the top, and I had Nurse, and a bunch of people had Barrie that passed me. So anyways, that's going to happen sometimes, but Nurse is your better peripheral player for 6,500. They're both awesome. Now you could do the double D stack if you'd like. It's just you're paying almost $13K for your two defensemen, so not going to be something a lot of people do. Is it Artem Zub time? Is it Zub or Zub?
I'm pretty sure it's Zub.
2,800 for Zub. You like him again?
I mean, I wish he was still mid price. I don't like his price coming up like that. Like I'll probably still play him, but I'm not prioritizing him like I might have on other slates, let's say.
Yeah, fair enough. I think is it Stutzla and Batherson? That's a pretty good two-man as well. Batherson a little bit expensive, 5,100, not playing with Tkachuk, but yeah, you mentioned Tkachuk one-offs. I don't have an issue with that either. He is a guy that can get there all by himself. Like he can get 8 shots on goal and be in a winning lineup without recording a point type of thing. So absolutely no problem with him at low ownership, which he'll certainly be low owned tonight. Anything else there? Or should we get to the real main event, the Sharks-Ducks matchup?
Yeah, let's get to that. This should be good.
All right. We've got plenty of time for this 5.5 total game. San Jose, Anaheim, 2.8 implied total for the Sharks. 2.7 for the Ducks. It's going to be Dubnyk going up against likely John Gibson for the Ducks. Once again, actually, I don't think I've mentioned it so far, but Top Stacks is unlocked for today only. If you guys want to get a peek behind the paywall, use your Top Stack tool. Gives you a chance of each stack being a top 2 play on the night compared to their ownership share. And then you've got the leverage column, everybody's favorite column. Looking at some of the lines in this game, first of all, Hertl and Meyer are expected to be back for the Sharks. Balcer's questionable tonight. Looks like he's going to be a game-time decision. But that line is coming up a little bit over-owned. Other lines in this game, let's see. You got to scroll down. They're very cheap. Actually, San Jose won some positive leverage. And then the Ducks, negative leverage on the Henrique line, negative leverage, actually positive leverage on the Lundstrom line. They're going to stick together. Do we have confirmation on the Ducks lines, by the way?
Oh, come on, man.
I mean, yeah, that's a stupid question. Like, who knows? Who knows what they're going to do? I'm seeing Vinny Lettieri with Getzlaf and Comtois. Looks like a guess. And, no disrespect to the sites that are guessing. You got to put something out there. I don't know what to do with the Ducks. But with Hertl and Meyer back for the Sharks, they look like they're in a pretty good spot. So you like the Sharks here?
I do like the Sharks here. The thing that's keeping me off of them a little bit is their ownership, right? Like you talk about how high their ownership is, especially the second line, but we have Thomas Hertl, 14%, Evander Kane between 12 and 13%, Brent Burns between 11 and 12%. Like that feels high on the road. But like, I'm wondering what kind of shape Hertl and Meyer are going to be in. Because like Hertl especially, there was a news article, I think in the Mercury News in San Jose not long ago. Like he talked about like shortness of breath, couldn't train, like all that's like he had really bad COVID symptoms. So, and we've seen guys from like Buffalo or Minnesota or whatever, and they've talked about how it takes them time to get their wind back, right? Which makes sense. Right? Like if you're having a hard time breathing and you're a professional athlete, you're probably not going to be back to 100% after 2 practices. So like, do I want to play 15% hurdle who might be at like 80% or 85% or something like that? Like, I think it's a question of how badly you want to get into that matchup. Like Anaheim, like we talked about Anaheim, pretty much every slate because we have to talk about them because they're always so popular as fillers. We talk about how much better Anaheim had been playing of late. It was their defense had improved. They were at the bottom of the league defensively through the first couple weeks. They're not at the bottom of the league anymore over the last few weeks. They're more towards like the Edmonton and New Jerseys rather than the Arizonas and Buffaloes. So it's an improvement, just not a huge one. But they are getting a little bit better defensively. And like I said, if Hurdle isn't anywhere close to full strength and he's super chalky, that probably keeps me off of San Jose too. Especially where we don't know what the lines are going to be. Like you said, Rudolph Balcers is a game time decision. He may be out. If he's out, it could be Ryan Donato on the wing. But if it's Ryan Donato, he's $100 more. So you got to make sure you have $100 left over on DK. If it's John Leonard, you got to make sure to late swap down to John Leonard. So if you want to just Hurdle Meyer 2-man and not have to deal with the late swap, like I understand that. But again, do I want to play a 50% Thomas Hurdle who might not be anywhere close to 100%? Like I just like if I'm talking myself out of it because I know how good a play Hurdle and Meyer in a nutshell are here tonight. Like in a nutshell, our Hurdle Meyer Leonard line, a second line at their price, especially with Hurdle under 4K going into San Jose would probably be one of the best second lines on the entire slate. But other people are going to realize that as well. And are people going to be in on Hurdle at an unbelievable amount just because he's 3,900? That's what's kind of keeping me away from that San Jose top line. I'm honestly in more on the San Jose second line. So I'm in more on the San Jose top line. Couture, Kane, and LeBanc have just been absolutely phenomenal this year. 2.7 expected goals for. I think their expected goal share is like 56% or something like that. They just played real well. They shouldn't have any problem with any of the matchups coming from Anaheim, especially if they throw that top line at them. Getzlaf and Comtois just haven't been great defensively together this year. So I really like that San Jose top line. I can't imagine they're going to be popular, right? Because people are going to play Edmonton and Colorado. Anybody that doesn't play Edmonton and Colorado, well, then you're left over with San Jose. But that's like maybe 20 to 30% of all lineups won't have Edmonton or Colorado in them. So then you're looking at 20 to 30% of potential lineups that could have San Jose won. So I think they're going to come in real low. So I'm not going heavy on them. I might have them in 3 out of 20 lineups or something like that. But I really like San Jose 1 here tonight. The problem is the power play, right? They moved Kevin LeBanc off and they moved Ryan Donato up, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. So it kind of messes with their power play a little bit, but you still get 2 out of 3. If you add Carlson, you get 3 out of 3. You can throw on Donato for some additional power play exposure, though I think Donato will probably just be replaced by Hurdle now. So Hurdle would probably be the guy you want to throw in. So that's where I'm sitting on San Jose right now. Mostly on San Jose 1. I probably won't have anything from San Jose 2. Anaheim, I do have some 2-mans because I think you can rely on like Getzlaf, Comtois being a 2-man and being, on a line together. I think you can rely on Henrik and Zegras being a 2-man and playing together. I just don't know what, all the 3-mans and where the third line is going to be exactly. So I'm just kind of sticking to those 2-mans in my Edmonton power plays. But like I said, you're going to have to get real different if you use those. So I'm really looking to get different with my Edmonton 1 stacks, anything that I use Anaheim.
Yeah. Really quick, we got a message. It said Anaheim Fortnite, LOL. I don't know if that's a troll, but that's like the third time I've heard someone talk about Edmonton 4/Derek Grant. Is that something you're considering here? I know he actually does get pretty good minutes. That's talk about fourth liners, but
that's the one. That's why we talk about the Anaheim fourth line at times, like Carter Rowney and those guys, and like Derek Grant you just mentioned. They'll actually play like 14 to 15 minutes. Most fourth lines play like 9-10 minutes. These guys actually play the minutes of like a pseudo third line almost. So, like if you want to use them because he'll come in under 1%, I have no issue with that. I very rarely play fourth liners that aren't named Chainsaw Alex Chainsaw.
Can't all be like Jason. While you were talking there, I tried to fill out a Sharks lineup with either Edmonton 1 or Colorado 1, and you can't do it if you stack the full line. Even if you go Couture Kane with Donato to try to get the full power play 1, certainly if you add in Carlson or Burns, you're not getting to Colorado or Edmonton. So there's 2 stacks that are on my radar for that reason. It's Vegas 1. You can play a really awesome Vegas 1 line at low ownership. Or you can play a San Jose 1 at low ownership. And I think anything below 10 or around 10 here is probably a little bit lower than what it should be, just based on how good those 2 lines are. So the low totals and the fact that you can't get them with Colorado and Edmonton make them appealing here for GPPs, especially if you've got a bunch of different lineups to play with. So I like to hear that you're getting to them in your 20 lineups. I will certainly be getting to some San Jose 1 in my 150. And
Here, let me ask you a little question then.
Yeah.
We have the Couture line and the Stone line at basically the same top 2 stack percentage and relatively the same ownership, and they're only $600 apart.
Yeah.
So which one would you play if you could only play one?
I think I would play Vegas 1. I think I would play Vegas 1. They're fully correlated on the power play. I think the total for Vegas is kind of disrespectful. They should have over a 3 implied goal total there, I think, with no Parayko. And Binnington, we know about Binnington. Binnington, he just got an extension, by the way. This guy's getting paid 6 years, $36 million for a Stanley Cup 2 seasons ago, where he was awesome. And I don't know, is he going to be that guy for the next 6 years? That's probably a conversation for another day.
I mean, it's almost 3 years ago now, right? Because they won it in 2018.
Yeah, it feels like forever ago. But congrats to him. He got paid. I don't think he's one of the better goalies in the NHL. Certainly hasn't been this season. But yeah, I'm all over the Sharks here. We talked about their top line. You talked about it a bunch. And then I still like Hurl and Meyer as a 2-man. The COVID concerns are definitely real, but 3,900, even if he's 80% himself for Hurdle, like that's a ridiculous price, especially playing with Timo. Those guys are in the second power play. Looks like with Burns, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a nice little 3-man you can do. And then I just have no clue what to do with the Ducks with these lines that we're showing. So what I would probably do if you think it's a good spot for the Ducks, and maybe it is, but I mean, Dubnik's been awful too. So you could play some Ducks, or you could swap some of your Sharks lineups to Ducks if you're drawing dead after the first couple games here. This is the last game of the night. So you don't have a ton of options, but if you leave some salary, you could go Getzlaf, Comtois, and Raquel. That's been a pretty good trio. Duos, you can go with Henrique Silfverberg. You mentioned Zegras, and was it Raquel that you think is going to be a 2-man?
Zegras and Henrique.
Zegras and Henrique. Okay, I've got different lines. So see, there you go. Like, you just don't know what the lines are going to be. So, yeah, that's all I've got for this one. I'm spreading around my exposure on the Ducks side. Do you have a hat trick pick of the night? Let's not count Edmonton 1 or Colorado 1. So someone not on those lines.
I'll go with my boy Brady Tkachuk.
I'll go with Max Pacioretty, the captain, Max Pacioretty. Although I don't think he's the captain for the Vegas. That's from an old video with PK Subban. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
I love that video so much. Anyways, look up that PK Subban video in the locker room with him going off and reading the starting line. If you guys haven't seen it and you need a good chuckle on a Friday.
I mean, if he gets a hat trick tonight, he'll be the captain of this show. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining. It is 4 Eastern, so we got to get out of here. NBA coming up actually in about an hour. So you got an hour. Go make your beer runs. Go make your grocery store runs. Go get your black cherry claws. And it will be Cliffy and Josh breaking it down for you guys tomorrow. Good luck. Hit me up in Slack or on Twitter DMs if you got any questions. And see you in 24 hours. Well, those guys will.